Oh, hooray, you all looked at me. Good. So we are going to get ready for our last keynote of the day. I have a couple of announcements before I describe our lovely speaker for you. First of all, I'd like to remind you all of the after party is being held at Bar Luchador, which is right down the street, immediately after the last talk. So we'd love to see you there. Come and celebrate the end of a successful MinneWebCon with us and eat some delicious tacos. Who doesn't love tacos? Please come. And we also have the second screen up here, which we did not have this morning. So if you are facing that way or if you're getting glare over this way, feel free to look at either one of the screens. So we have both of those available for you. So I'm so honored to introduce Dr. Jade Davis. She is our second keynote today. She spends a lot of time thinking about how tech becomes invisible in everyday life and how it affects intrahuman interaction. She's fascinated by the accident built into, erasure caused by, an imaginary world of emerging technologies and how they recreate cultural biases. Her research focuses on questions of multi-generational trauma and crisis and the stories we've inherited through technology in the digital age. She is currently the Director of Digital Project Management at Columbia University Libraries, and we are so pleased to welcome her here today to give the talk, The Already Augmented and Virtually Real. So please welcome Dr. Davis. All right. And we'd like you, we're going to do some interaction, so if you can get up and sit at a table where you don't really know anybody, we'd really appreciate that. Sorry, we're going to make you get up and do stuff. It's good exercise.
Yeah, if you can. If you can't get up for reasons, you can stay at your table, but I'd prefer it if you move tables because you all just ate. And I'm tired, so seeing movement sort of wakes me up, and I go, oh, this is happening. This is really actually happening. No one really? Get up, please. Get up, let's move. I don't want to have to go into mom mode. I hate mom mode a lot. They don't know each other? Okay. Are you all at tables where you generally don't know each other? Okay. Is anybody sitting with a coworker? Okay. Excellent. So then I guess this is okay, and we can sort of get started. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you all for having me. This talk is going to be a little bit different. All of the things that were said about me in the bio are true. I'm really interested in questions of culture as an easier way to say it, and I think it's really important to give you the disclaimer, which you can read. But the most important thing to me is that there might be some content in this talk that you might find disturbing, and this talk might make you uncomfortable. If not, this talk will probably make you uncomfortable. So if this is a problem, just be forewarned. It's something that will most likely happen. At some point during this talk, you might be uncomfortable or confused because it's a new experience. And in order to prep you for that, we have an orientation. So on all of the tables, there should be a little piece of paper with a number on it. Has everybody found the piece of paper on their table? Excellent. So what you are going to do is choose somebody at your table to be a reader. This is obviously after you introduce yourselves, if you didn't do that during lunch, since very few people moved. So you'll introduce yourself, you'll choose somebody to read what's on the piece of paper, you'll choose somebody to record some short notes, and then there will be a reporter who may or may not be randomly called on to share what your table came up with. So at this time, you can open your sheet of paper, and we will play Divination of the One. And the way that you win this game, it's basically a little riddle. You either make me laugh with what you came up with, or you actually guess who your one is on the sheet of paper. So I'm going to give you like a minute or two to do this. It's quick. It's going to be fast. I see a hand. Hold on, there's a question. Another hand. Are we missing papers? Are there other papers? No. So we need to consolidate tables. So if you don't have a paper, or if you are at a table with papers, and you have open seats, please raise your hand so people know where they can go. Oh my gosh, there's so many open seats. So please move so you can participate in the orientation and just be peaked for the talk. So 30 more seconds, so get the answer ready for the reporter. All right. Reporters, do you have your answers? I'm hearing laughter, which means that everybody is successfully orienting themselves. This is good. So the first one we're going to talk about is the bone collector. And for those that did not have the bone collector, what does the bone collector say? I am the most famous bone collector there ever was. There are films made about me, stories told. I scour the world at night, preying on innocents, collecting bones only from the living. My rituals rarely change, even as the rest of the world does. There was no way to protect the innocents from my influence. Their bloody sacrifice is my reward. Who is number 3? Who had number 3? Wait, there's 2 3s? Did I write 3 times? Okay. Number 3, reporter, what do you have? The answer? Yeah. Oh my gosh, okay, who else? Number 5. The same? Did other people have the tooth fairy? Did anybody have anything other than the tooth fairy? What did you have? Hyena. I like you won. You just made me laugh. So, So tooth fairy was the mostly universal answer. We also have hyena, which was a winner. Yes? The Grim Reaper. Does the Grim Reaper take bones from the living? Okay. Big reveal. Yes, obviously, the bone collector is the tooth fairy. That is the one that has rituals and stories and movies starring wonderful ex-wrestlers made about her. The next one is the magician. So the magician. I am one of the few who has mastered alchemy. I am able to transform using only words coupled with very specific movements. There's a missing word here that should say my magic. I'm very sorry if this was confusing. My magic shapes their feelings and their belief shapes my world. Before I allow them to engage in the ecstasy of cannibalism, they must tell me that human flesh is what sustains them. Once we enter into this agreement, I revel in their bloody feast. Their hunger sustains me. Number 13. Wait, are there 2 13s? There's 3 13s? 13. Okay, that's 16, not 13. Who's 13? Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Other answers? Anybody else have priest? Okay, couple priest. So for those of you who did not have priest because other tables had things, what did you come up with, recorders? Jesus? What? A fetus? I like a fetus. I hadn't thought of a fetus. That's beautiful. Oh my gosh, now I'm sad that that's not the right answer. They just won the entire talk. Wow. So, yes, it's communion and priests. If you are Catholic, when you go through Holy Communion, at the point of saying amen, you're acknowledging that, yes, this is actually the flesh and blood of Christ. So if you're raised Catholic, you're raised as a cannibal, it's okay. I still love you. It's all good. So now we're going to do one together that you've not read yet, and I'm going to see if I can see this. So this is the future most famous and celebrated serial killer in the world. And hopefully now you all have a sense of how I sort of make sense of things. So I am celebrated the world over for the creative nuance of my murders. My plans are often shared in advance and immortalized before they occur with a waiting list of victims. My murder count currently sits at 7 known victims. It is plausible that I should be held accountable for copycat crimes. Each new method of death I imagine is bloodier and more visible than the one before it, and each time there is an announcement of a new method, I am met with more and more acclaim. My most famous and successful method of murder is celebrated by a reenactment tour happening the world over. Any guesses? Oh, the silence is deafening. No one? Crucifixion? Any other crazy thoughts? Okay. Here comes the reveal. This is the part where the discomfort starts, just an FYI. It's Elon Musk. So one of the things that sort of sat weird with me for a very long time is all of these inventions that Elon Musk makes sort of kill people. Self-driving cars have killed 7 people around the world. I always thought Mars was going to kill people. He said Mars is going to kill people. The Hyperloop seems pretty nasty, to be honest. Like, that's a bloody mess. And I would tell this to people, and they were like, no, it's technology. And then he came out with the flamethrower, and I got all of these direct messages on Twitter saying, I think maybe you were right, but I'm not sure if I can say this publicly. If you've never been to the website of The Boring Company, I don't know if you see the tagline at the very bottom. It says, guaranteed to liven up any party. And there are 20,000 consumer flamethrowers out in the world because Elon Musk thought it would be cool. Like, there's videos of him shooting at people with the flamethrowers. It's really weird. And I think that this is important because, and this is why we play this game, we live in a world where we're constantly coming up with fantastic tales and stories to make sense of things. The Tooth Fairy communion are things that are complicated, but they help us be closer to each other. are further apart from each other. Like losing a tooth is pretty scary. I don't know if any of you have kids. The first one is usually like, oh no, is this going to hurt? So there's this magical being that somehow gives you a reward for doing it. Communion, we need to be closer with Jesus, and so you go through this thing, you take the Holy Sacrament, and that becomes part of your body, and you become part of this collective body that is the body of Christ. Technology is complicated because we believe that innovation and progress are inevitable, and technology is inherently good. And it's important to point out that this is sort of where we are because it means we foreclose the language to talk about some of the problematic things that we're unintentionally bringing into existence because we don't want to confront the ugly parts of it. And so I have 3 points that I want to make today, and then we'll do a little bit more engagement and a little bit more discomfort. It's coming, I'm forewarning you just so you know. The first is that the primary limit of all technologies, but especially emerging technologies, is our own biased imagination, which is shaped by our experience. The next thing is that to live within society is to always already be augmenting the world. And the third is virtual reality and virtual worlds are false transcendence. So the first one, what does it mean that the limit of all technologies are shaped by our biased imagination? I've spent a lot of time and many years trying to figure out how I talk to people about this, and there is one question that I know I can ask that usually sort of shows how imagination is biased and how we limit what we experience. And that is, what color is the sky? Anyone? Guesses? Blue? Anybody against blue for the sky? Yes. It's a bunch of particles. That's the right answer. The sky is clear. It's a reflection of the world. I've been in places where the sky is pink and orange. We've all had gray sky days. It represents what's on the ground, what's happening above, what's happening in the weather. So it's this representation that when we come to the place where it's like, I have to imagine the sky, we go, blue. Sky blue. I know that blue, and that's the only thing the sky gets to be. And oftentimes when we try to imagine outside of that blue, it becomes alien. So like if something's on Mars, the sky is orange or pink, which apparently the sky on Mars is orange or pink. Ours is too sometimes though, so we have a biased imagination. Emerging technologies are really complicated because you end up at this place where you're stuck with the bias of your imagination plus the goodness of technology, which makes it so that we don't know how to confront our biases, and we think that collecting more and more information will somehow fix that, but we don't realize that we're sort of boxed in and we don't go to the places where we need to be asking to make sure that we just aren't recreating the social biases that sort of separate us from each other in meaningful ways. This will be the only theory I use. It's very short. Marshall McLuhan. I was trained by Canadians. Anybody else? McLuhanist? Just me? Okay. So McLuhan's famous book is The Medium is the Message, and the main concept that's really easy to pick up is that technologies are an extension of the self. So I see many people with glasses. These extend our eyes, our shoes extend our feet, cars' feet. Electric circuitry and digital stuff is an extension of the neural pathways, and that gets really complicated when we start thinking about things like augmented reality, because another word for extensions is augmentation. So all technologies by design are augmenting us in particular ways, usually with specific purposes that were designed by humans who are all inherently biased because we think the sky is blue. One of the things that I've been trying to figure out is if there is like a thing that augmentation is an extension of. I'm not sure what that is outside of the neural pathways, and I think virtual reality is much worse than augmentation, but we'll get there eventually in the near future. So on to augmentation. To live within culture and society is to always already be augmenting. So I'm going to go through a couple of things that augment the world. Language, names, signs, emotions, race, music, media, Sex smells was supposed to be 2 slides, apologies. Faces, lights, maps, star charts, and I also have a star chart on a face, which many of you have already seen already. One of the other important McLuhan things to know is that when you have a change in scale or speed, it's something new. And so while we always augment the world, the thing that's different about the way that we're doing it digitally is we are overlaying a massive amount of information on all of us. And when we start augmenting humans within the body, it gets really weird because we augment some creepy stuff, and the systems are pretty biased. So if you think of facial recognition as a way to augment information about people, there's a limit to the sample they use to program these things. So I'm sure many of you have seen the things where they don't realize that Asian eyes are open, they have trouble detecting dark skin, they can't tell gender for certain races because they were programmed with white people. All of these things are biases that we just build into the technology without thinking about it, and then we augment the world with it. Likewise, when we start using these things coupled with this other virtual world we exist in, which is the world of data, where we are not physically there, but we're more there than we are here right now, it gets really complicated. And one of the reasons it gets complicated is because virtual reality and virtual worlds are a false transcendence. This is, I guess it's theoretical. Like for me, this is obvious, but I don't know that we think about transcendence that much. So the ability to just expel myself from this body that I exist in is something that we aim to do many times that we aren't able to, and virtual reality, I think, is one of those false things. But this is also something that we do culturally. So I am going to read these out very quietly, so a couple of slides. Colorblind politics, or a virtually race-free world enabled by my black best friend or one black friend who exists because the meritocracy is real and social inequality is fake, whispers, and also because said friend is one of the good ones where one is, you know, oh, I can't say because I'm socially colorblind. This is a mute swan. I looked up, I wanted to find the mute symbol, and I saw the swan, and I was like, I like swans more than the mute symbol, so we'll go with the swan. One of the things that happens in our day-to-day life is we're constantly in the process of creating this virtual world where everything is okay. And yes, everything is okay, nothing's wrong, everything's perfect, everything is lovely, there's no social inequality. That isn't true. But if we had to confront the messiness of the world, just general messiness, coupled with like the awful things in the world on a regular basis, we probably wouldn't make it through the day. So we do things like, say, colorblind politics. Are people familiar with colorblind politics? Is anybody not? Okay. And what that does, and the reason I was looking at mute symbols, is it forecloses the language we need to be able to meaningfully critique the thing. And one of the reasons the language is foreclosed is because we're biased, and we know this because we all think the sky is blue. And so we are unable to sort of talk ourselves out of this imaginary existence. And when we go to technologies and think about what they're doing, we just recreate our boxes, not necessarily intentionally. Like I said, everybody's biased. I also often think the sky is blue, and then I get really sad because I'm like, I really like the pink sky, though. But one of the things I'm always asking is, what does it mean that we are so incapable of questioning these things? What does it mean that if I say something that I think I believe, it's like this very low belief. I think progress might be bad. That's something that in my heart of hearts, I'm sometimes like, oh my gosh, if this is the future we've created, do we need to take a few steps back and rethink what we're doing? But we don't have a language to really talk about that in a meaningful way because it's coupled with technology, and technology is always forward-facing, and forward-facing is always good, and we lose the language to do that, and that means that we increase the distance between us and other people. My slides were about race, but there are tons of other things that do this. We have trouble talking about gender in technology. We have trouble talking about disability and ability in technology. We have trouble imagining new worlds with technology that are more accessible and open outside of just saying, go make some cool stuff, we'll show up, it's gonna be great. And then I get into this stuff and I'm like, oh no, I'm a zombie, this is not great, but this is fun. Which is the other thing that sort of makes it so that we reinforce our biases. A lot of these things are really fun, and we don't have the language to say fun is bad unless fun is you killing somebody. I think we think that's bad, but not all the time. Again, everything just about is a space of bias. So, where do we go from here? We are going to have a thought experiment. It's another game-ish type thing. I'm calling it, would you do it? There are two ways to play this game. There's one that is like for 12 and under if you're an adult, and there's another way that's like the super uncomfortable version. Raise your hand if you want the super uncomfortable version. So few people. Oh my gosh, guess what? We're playing the super uncomfortable version because technology takes away your ability to make meaningful choices. We take technologies and we do not think about the fact that they've made a bunch of assumptions and decisions for us, which is one of the reasons we're having this whole privacy data thing right now, as though we didn't know that was coming if you looked at your settings and read the agreements. Okay, so this game, let me get some water, because it's going to be uncomfortable. So some of the things that I think we need to think about when we're thinking about emerging technologies, especially something like virtual reality and augmented reality, though this is specifically about virtual reality, because I think that's the new experience that's available to consumers now, even though it's old. And I saw in the schedule there's going to be a talk about the history of this stuff. If you're interested, not my talk. But we have it in our phones now. You can get like really cool headsets for $800 or less. I have a Google Daydream standalone on pre-order, what? So this is about VR. And as I said, I think it's a false transcendence, and I think that's really, really scary, because we are creating these spaces that are supposed to replicate human experience and be totally immersive, and that means that it's not just extending the body, it's extending the world, and also at the same time pulling you out of it, which is, McLuhan has something about when it extends too far, it's amputation. I was like, amputation doesn't happen. People are like, video games. I'm like, no. Virtual reality, I'm still trying to figure out if it's a meaningful amputation. So, the uncomfortable version of the game. I'm going to show you a series of pictures, and as I hope most of you know, the way emerging technologies win tends to be with pornography. So I'm going to show you a bunch of pictures, and you are going to ask yourself if you would have virtual reality sex with this thing. And the uncomfortable part is, do you think the people you've met earlier at your table would also do the same thing? You don't have to look at each other. Number one. Dogs in stockings wearing high heels, a meme that circulated on the internet a while ago. Would you have sex with it? Have you met people today that might have sex with it? In virtual reality. No answers. Again, thought experiment. Balloons, featured often on Discovery Channel or TLC. There are people that have my strange fetish or strange, I don't know. Sex with balloons. There's a nice big round helium-filled balloon. It's not round. Whatever balloon shapes are, that's the shape. I'm thinking the red one that's way, way, way in the back. Would you have sex with the balloon? Would the people you met today have sex with the balloon? I don't know. The mute swan has made another appearance. Virtual reality sex. Virtual reality sex. Same questions. Apple pie, there's a movie about this one. Would you or would you not have sex with this in virtual reality? And would the people you met today do it? A rhino, the horns, you, or the people you met, virtual reality happening right now. Okay. So I'm going to ask that we stop playing the game. And I just want you to think about if you would have sex with the next thing. And this is the part where I need you to think about the morality of the systems we're creating and the ethics and the limits and the possibilities. And that is a child. I've spoken with a lot of people that say VR isn't the same, it's the same as video games, it's not something new. But when we say we're creating a fully immersive system, we're developing haptics, we're developing all of these inputs to make it real, one of the few spaces where we say, okay, that's not okay, we can't talk about this culturally, it's bad, we can't accept this, is sex with a child. And if sex is the frontier of these things, and virtual reality has a lot of people learning to make porn stuff, at which point is it too far? How do we have a conversation about it? What are the legal limits of this? Like, what does it mean? Those are all things that we need to confront, just like we sort of need to confront the fact that Elon Musk is killing a bunch of people. But we often don't. The other thing is about social augmentation. I asked you all to not keep playing the bad version of the game where you think about other people, but there's a chance for half a second you might have. And that's an experience lots of people have all the time when they walk into the room. There are assumptions about the people there. There are assumptions about the person who's walking in, and that leads to people getting sexually harassed. If you're a 14-year-old boy lost on the way to school, you get shot. Trying to go to the bathroom in Starbucks, you get kicked out. If you're trying to get into a building and you need an assistive device and there's stairs, you might not be able to get in. But the world is augmented in particular ways that feed into the biases of the cultures and societies we exist in. And I think they're sort of messed up. But like I said, I'm still in this. I'm not sure where I feel about where I am with progress. I do know that I think empathy is bad, but that's another talk. And so normally that is where my talks would end. But this is a keynote, so I have a little bit of extra time to try to lift you all up. Because my talks tend to get really, really heavy, and then I walk away oh man, everybody's upset, I'm running away now, have fun. So I want to try to fix this. I've been told that I can play the song. So, is anybody, I'm gonna do music, I'm gonna augment the world to change the space. To make sense of the world is the fact that I'm losing my ability to move around because I have a joint issue and I don't look like it, so people are like, why are you sitting down? And I'm like, oh my God, my knee hurts. Or why did you drop that glass? And I'm like, my hand fails. But as I mentioned, I'm an enthusiast for emerging technologies. I have a collection of drones. My living room is set up so I can play HTC Vive with my children. It makes me super duper happy. And there's nothing like being in pain and putting on one of those headsets and just having it sort of wash away in the event that it's a day where I can move around. And I can stare at the world and just be like, oh my God, my senses are totally overwhelmed. This is great. I'm doing stuff. Yeah. Wow, my hands are white, which is something that happens a lot. We build in these biases where we assume that, one, I'm going to have man hands, two, they're going to be white man hands, and three, they aren't going to be crooked, which is fine, I get it. You don't have to make crooked hands, but it's weird. This is really weird to me, though, because there's a really easy solution to this. Does anybody know what the solution is? No one? Customization? There's an easier solution. No, that's weird. That's weird for many people. So you assume that if you have to build for the mini, most people are going to have hands, and that's unfortunate, but it's what we do. Gloves. Like, why do we have to have skin? Let's just have gloves. And so I'm asking anybody who's out there creating and trying to remake human hands, can we please just have gloves? I don't care if it's the Mickey Mouse glove, that might be really weird. It could be a very sleek leather glove, but if you have gloves, you don't have people in this experience where they're like, whose hands are those? That totally breaks the immersion. Oh, I forgot to say something about false transcendence, though. So I love virtual reality, it's great, but another reason I think it's a false transcendence and we're all zombies is because, let me get back to the other slide. Presenter notes. This situation, this one right here. So I have 2 children. They are boys. They like to do pranks and be violent because they're 9 and 11 and they're going through hormonal stuff. That's really upsetting. I'm really scared that they're just gonna push me for fun. And then I think, what does it mean that we're creating these systems where in addition to having hands, I'm so disconnected from the world that my children might trip me or somebody might stab me, but I'm probably the only person that fears stabbing on a regular basis, and anyway. So, fix hands, think about how we break up the space. I've come across something that has sort of, it struck me when I saw it, because it was a thing that's been created where people are really trying to figure out what can this tool do that's more than just the visual field, what can this tool do that's helping that wouldn't be able to be done in another way. Are people familiar with touching masterpieces? Okay, so this is a short video, it's 2 minutes long. It's narrated, they can talk about it much better than I can, so I'm just gonna play it.
First time, this was like a different world. I was thinking, well, how can I feel in these gloves? How the hell am I supposed to feel something now? And then the vibrations came, and it was something I totally didn't expect. Well, art is not always explainable just by words. The element to touch it and to know, to feel it is like missing. When first touching the virtual statue, I was kind of puzzled, like it actually works, and that that there's something in front of me that is existing. Usually when you come to a museum, you can't touch these things, so I can just hear about it from a guide or from somebody who's with me, reading that, or then that's not a full experience. Shouldn't be. So the best moment was, of course, when I started to have an idea like what part of the body I'm touching, and have the art in front of you and can explore it and see how much your imaginations were right, what you wouldn't expect. For example, about David. Like, yeah, I knew that this guy will have a big head, but that it's this big, or
I recognized the dress of Venus of Milo. I said, like, this is the dress, and I said, yes, all right. So it was the greatest.
The entire experience, and this is something that adds this element which is missing, which was missing before. That you can see it really and know know the beauty of the art and touch it.
So if you go to the website touchingmasterpieces.com, they've made all of their work available. You can download all of their code, all of their image files, everything. And if you have the HTC Vive pucks, and the lovely light boxes, you can go and touch sculptures, which is one of those amazing things where it's like I hadn't really thought, because I wear glasses, but I'm not visually impaired, what does it mean to only understand art through description versus having the ability to touch? And then I also thought about my children who got yelled at MoMA for getting too close to a piece of art because they wanted to see it more clearly. Things like this are important because this is one of those spaces where I know I have my own biases and inability to imagine, but if you do a good job of going through the world and actually seeing people and you try to find the common languages, you end up thinking through some really cool stuff. And when we're pushed to either create towards social justice only or towards making money only and not towards bringing people together in a meaningful way just across the spectrum, we end up with a lot of blind spots that these technologies might or might not be able to fix. That's not to say that this is not problematic in some ways, but I'd much rather be talking about this problem than worrying about the weird sexual harassment that happens in social VR spaces and the weirdness of porn driving a lot of the augmentation too. If you look at the stuff that was just taken down from the porn sites with the celebrity videos, we sort of do really bad stuff. And VR doesn't have to be about taking us out of our bodies. It could be radically about putting us back in meaningful ways, which is what I think this does, which is why I sort of wanted to end with it and wanted to show you all, because a lot of people have not seen this. So let me get to my last little bit here. I have one more slide, if I can find the mouse. I found the mouse. So, back to what we were doing, which is me talking to you all and having you all think about stuff or not. So I'll tell you what's on the last slide. It's up on, there we go. It's a Prince quote, because we're in Minnesota. I think it's important to note that Prince said that whole virtual reality thing, it really is demonic, and I'm not a demon. May we all go through the world understanding that we are not demons and figure out ways to help each other with these technologies rather than just trying to quickly turn a profit or increase distance or lose language to talk about all the ways we're sort of messed up that we can fix. But we need the language. All right, that's it. Thank you, everybody. We have a bit of time for questions or feedback, comments. You can yell at me if you're super uncomfortable still. No questions? Okay. Then we have a small break. Please take a break before you go to your next session. And thank you all for listening to me talk and talking to each other.